We begin today at the Mishnah at the bottom of Daf Ein Tesam at Beis. The Mishnah begins a new subject here. Zok the Heilige Mishnah, Ein Megadlin Behemoth Daka Be'Eretz Yisrael. You're not allowed to raise small livestock in Eretz Yisrael, like sheep or goats or things like that. And the reason is because they go around and they eat and they consume and they ruin people's properties. And there's a special Indian in Eretz Yisrael, which is Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, that the land has to be a place where you can grow and settle, so you can't have small livestock. Aval Megadlim Besuria, however, in Syria, which is called Aram Tseva, maybe it's today Syria, over there you're allowed to raise small livestock. And here Rashi says the Tana of this Mishnah holds like the opinion that says that Syria, even though David HaMelech conquered it, but nevertheless, it didn't become part of Eretz Yisrael. We learned about this in Masechta Gittin. It's a big machlokes whether the Kibush Yochid of David HaMelech makes it part of Eretz Yisrael or not. This Mishnah holds it's not. And also in the wilderness of Eretz Yisrael, it's not near anyone's properties, any place where things grow. So you're allowed to have over there, you're allowed to raise small livestock. You're not allowed to raise chickens in Yerushalayim ipnei kachim, because of the kachim that are there, that everyone eats kachim in Yerushalayim. And what happens with the chickens is, Rashi says, these chickens are always by the garbage, and there are things that are tamei there, and they could even bring a tiny little thing which is tamei and be metama kachim very easily. So therefore, no raising chickens in Yerushalayim. V'lo kayanim be'Eretz Yisrael, and kayanim anywhere in Eretz Yisrael, which have to be careful to be toir, so they're not allowed to raise chickens anywhere in Eretz Yisrael. Mepnei tares, because of the tares, the kayanim mitrum and so on. Ein megadlin chazirin b'chol makim. You're not allowed to raise a chazer anywhere, and the Gemara will explain later why this is. Lo yigadol adam es hakelev, a person shouldn't raise a dog either. Elam kein hayukasher b'shalsheles, unless the dog is tied with a chain. Ein person nishuvim. You're not allowed to spread out traps, liyonim, for the pigeons or for the doves, that is, for the birds. Unless it's far from the yishuv, the place where the people live and are settled, it has to be far away, 30 ris, which Rashi says is 4 mil. You're not allowed to put these traps close enough to the city because you might end up trapping birds that belong to private individuals. It has to be further out. In a Braisa we learned, you're not allowed to raise small livestock in Eretz Yisrael, but you're allowed to raise them in the wilderness. We had before the Lashon Chershim, it refers to forests and wilderness, Eretz Yisrael. But in Syria though, like the Mishnah said, even in a settled area, you're allowed to raise small livestock. Needless to say, Eretz Yisrael, where there is no concept of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, that we want to make sure that the land is settled and can be used and planted and so on, there you can raise small livestock. Tanya Doch, and another Braisa we learned, Ein Megadlim Bein Medaka Be'Eretz Yisrael. You shouldn't raise small livestock in Eretz Yisrael. Aval Megadlin B'Midbar Shebi in the deserts of Yehuda, or B'Midbar Shebi Sfar Akoi, on the deserts that are by the border of the city of Akoi, there you're allowed. And even though Chachamim said that that the small livestock you're not allowed to raise in Eretz Yisrael, but the large livestock like cows and oxen and so on, that you are allowed to raise in Eretz Yisrael. What's the reason for this? Because Chachamim do not decree anything on the public, on people, unless it's something that people are able to abide to, are able to handle it. So therefore the Braisa explains, when you have small livestock, even if it's not being raised in Eretz Yisrael, and you need it for the purpose of shechting and eating meat, be able to bring from outside Eretz Yisrael, even if you're not raising it in Eretz Yisrael. However, the large livestock, so this is something which you have to have in Eretz Yisrael. You can't bring this from outside Eretz Yisrael. It's needed for, you plow with it and you use it for other things. So this is something that the people need for their living. So therefore, Chacham warned Geizer, even though it's possible that the large livestock, they also go around and eat from other fields, but nevertheless, you could raise it in Eretz Yisrael. Taisus actually over here says, even when you get to large livestock, you should be careful. It shouldn't be let out in the fields. You have to have it in your house, and you have to be careful with it. Another thing, even though Chachamim said that ein megadlen behemet daka, you're not allowed to raise small livestock in Eretz Yisrael, before Yontif, 30 days, when you have to have behemoths in order to shech, to have meat for Yontif. So 30 days before, you're allowed to buy these animals to have them available to shecht. Or or before, if you're marrying off a son, a chasana, so you have to have 30 days before, you have to have the behemoths that you need for the meat. But you have to, though, keep in mind that even though you have this period of 30 days that you're allowed to buy the small livestock, you may think, let's say I buy it not at the beginning of this 30 days before Yom Tif, but you buy it towards the end of those 30 days. So maybe you may say that you can keep it even later, after Yom Tif. 30 days. So that it says, no, you're not allowed to keep it past Yom Tif. It's just there for the purpose of shechting for the meat for Yom Tif. And the Gemara explains this. The Sol Gedai Tachamine, I would think to say, the Yinavik Leiregel, that when the Yom Tif is over, Umechizavna ad Hashta, and from the time that he bought this animal until now, Akatile Malale Tlosin Yemen, it's not 30 days yet. So Loi Teime, don't say, Tlosin Mishrishari Leileshuye, that the takana was that 30 days you're allowed to keep this animal until you shecht it. No, Elakivin, the Nafik Leiregel, once the Yom Tov is over, you're not supposed to keep the behemoth with you anymore. A similar thing. Okay. So for the Kabbanis, it's also obviously allowed. Here it's even talking about the meat that a person needs b'chlal for his family, for Yom Tov, not even the union of Karbanis. Another place where there's an exception, where a person is not stam raising these animals, but he's keeping it for shechting, for eating. V'atabach, a person that gathers these animals and he sells them on the day of the marketplace for people to buy animals to shech, to eat. Lekeyach v'sheichet, he can buy and then shech them. Lekeyach v'shoya, or you can buy these animals and then keep it with him for 30 days. But however, he shouldn't keep with him the one that he bought last. Rashi here teaches haguna means similar to what we said before. The one that you bought last and you're keeping it with you for a very short period of time. So don't say that because I bought it very close to the day of the marketplace, so therefore maybe I can keep it for full 30 days. No, after the place of the time of the marketplace when it's being sold, you're not allowed to keep it with you anymore.
He's buying from somebody. Who's the somebody that he has to keep a lot to sell to other people?
He's selling it to other people, yeah.
I'm saying, but where is he buying it from?
He's buying it from someone from Chutz La'aretz, from outside Eretz Yisrael. Yeah. Shalu Talmida b'S Rabbi Gamliel. The students asked Rabbi Gamliel the Shaila, Ma'u legadol. Are you allowed to raise small livestock in Eretz Yisrael? Amar lehen. Rabbi Gamliel answered, Mutter. Yeah, it's allowed. So the Gemara asks, how did Rabbi Gamliel say this? In our mission it says that that you don't raise small livestock in Eretz Yisrael. Says the Gemara, Elo hochika boyimine. This is the question that they asked him. Mahu lishais. Are you allowed to keep it with you when you're going out, you're going to shecht it? Are you allowed to keep it with you for the period we said before, for 30 days, for a certain period of time? So for that he said, if you're not just raising small livestock and it goes out in the fields and it could eat from people's properties, this is allowed. But if you have this animal and you're going to use it, you're going to have it by yourself and you're going to shecht it, make sure it doesn't go out with a herd of animals. You're going to have to tie it to the legs of a bed to make sure that it stays in your house until you are going to shecht it. Yeah, so the Gemara, Rashi that it says, we'll see here based on the Gemara afterwards, that this is a heter Rabbi Gamliel said. If for whatever reason you want to have an animal, a sheep, a goat, so you can keep the animal, but you're going to have to tie it to the leg of a bed. You're not allowed to let it go outside, to go anywhere. Now we learned a story in Abraise, there was a story with a chassid, and on this chassid, in Mefarshim it says, whenever it says in the Gemara chassid, so sometimes, and over here it refers to Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. That's who it was. He had an issue with his heart. Rashi here says that he had a shortness of breath. That's what it sounds like what Rashi is saying here. So they asked the doctors what he should do to heal himself. And they said, he has nothing that can heal him. He has to drink hot milk directly from the body of the animal, every single morning. So what do? They brought him a goat. They tied it to the legs of his bed. And every morning he would drink the hot milk directly from the animal. It was days later. His friends came to visit him. And they saw this goat that's tied to the legs of the bed. They didn't want to go into the house. They were backing out. And they said, he has armed robbers in his house. What does this mean? And in this person's house. So Rashi says, what does this mean? He has armed robbers in his house. If he has a goat in his house, and the Chachamim said you're not allowed to raise any small livestock in Eretz Yisrael, so how does he have it in his house? So here you see that what Rashi said before, that the Chachamim disagree with Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel says if you tie it to your bed, it's not a problem. But over here you see that the friends of Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, the Chassid here, they were not happy with this, because the Chachamim say you're not allowed to raise small livestock in Eretz Yisrael, including in a case where you're tying it to his bed. And Valmura, they said again, this list of Mezuyim Bebeisa, he has like an armed robber in his house, and we're going to go into his house. Yashvu ubatku, they sat down and they inspected him, and they found that the only avera that he had, that he didn't listen and follow the halacha of his friends, of the chachamim that passed in this way, was regarding this goat that he had. As a discussion here in the Mefarshim, because if he was in a situation where he had shortness of breath and the doctor said that this is the only way he could heal himself, so then it should be mutter, right? Especially if it's bekuach nefashis, it's a sakana. So there's a discussion about this in Mefarshim. Some Mefarshim say it must have been a situation where it wasn't a life-threatening thing, and he could have figured out another way how to heal himself. Azim was mizagin. Otherwise, why were they mamish so upset about this? Omar. So he himself, when he passed away, he said, I know the only avera I have is with this goat that I had here in Eretz Yisrael, and I tied it to my bed, and I didn't paskin like the Chachamim paskin that you shouldn't raise a goat even if you tie it to your bed. Amar Rabbi Shmuel said, or other the Zagaris here, Rabbi Shimon Shizuri, Mibali Batim Shebegolol, from the prominent people, the Balabatim of Golil Ha'elyon, of the upper Galil. Hayubei Saba was from the family of my father. And why were they destroyed? Why is there nothing left of them? Because they raised small livestock in Eretz Yisrael, and their animals would pasture out in the wilderness. Okay, but that was still a problem, as the Gemara will explain here. And also, v'donin dinei mamanis biyachid. And when they paskin the halachas of dinei mamanis, they paskin with one individual. Mishnah Pirkei Yaveh says, "Al ti don yechidi." Yeah, you can't paskin just one person alone. Going back now to this, that they raised the animal in the wilderness. Before it said that in the wilderness it's okay. So the Gemara explains, even though this wilderness was right near the homes where they lived, so it shouldn't be an issue. But Sadek Ketana Hoisa, there was a small field in between, and they would bring their animals from the house where they were to this wilderness, and there was that field there, and therefore they were over on the Takanas Achamim that you're not allowed to raise small livestock in Eretz Yisrael. Tana Rabbanan and Abrayis we learned Royesh also tshuva, a shepherd that's coming to do tshuva, and he's raising small livestock in Eretz Yisrael when he's not supposed to. We don't obligate him immediately to sell off all of his animals right away, because he's not going to do it. It's too difficult. Ela moicher al yad al yad. We allow him to sell one at a time, little by little. V'chein ger shenaflu loy klovim v'chazeirim b'yirushasei. A ger that dogs or chazeirim fell into his possession by an inheritance. And we said before that you shouldn't be raising dogs or chazeirim. So what do? We don't obligate him to sell it all off right away. Ela moicher al yad al yad. He has to sell it off little by little. A similar thing, bias, a person makes a neder to buy a house, or to marry a woman, in Eretz Yisrael, so he made this neder. So how does he have to fulfill this neder? We don't obligate him that he must fulfill his neder the first house he sees, or any house he sees, or any woman he sees, he has to marry her, until he finds the wife, the house that's fit for him, and that's how he fulfills his neder. We're not concerned, maybe he won't come to fulfill his neder. No, the neder means the one that's right for him. There was a story with a woman, that her son was causing her distress. V'kafza v'nishba, she got up and she swore, Kol mi sheyavai, whoever comes to me, eini machzir asai. I'm not going to turn him away, or turn her away, that is. V'kafzu aleh b'nei yadim she'einu mu'ganim, and all kinds of women that are not appropriate jumped and came and said, we're here, we're married, we're ready to marry your son, and based on your neder, she said, whoever will come. So now she has to marry off her son to one of these women that came and were ready to marry him. But when this matter came to the Chachamim, Amru, that is, the Chachamim said, that she only meant to marry off her son to someone that's befitting for her. So in other words, over here, there's a bigger chiddush. Even though she specified in her neder clearly, she said, Komi sheyavai, whoever will come. But nevertheless, we understand that she only meant to say someone that's befitting to marry him, not stam anyone. Just like Chachamim said that you don't raise small livestock in Eretz Yisrael, so too they said, that also small livestock from animals, or chaya, or beasts, you don't raise in Eretz Yisrael, which would be referring to deers and animals of that sort. For the same reason, again, because they destroy properties in Eretz Yisrael, because of the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, we don't want them to destroy areas in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Shmuel says, Megadlin klovim kufrin, even though we said before you don't raise any dogs, but you're allowed to raise klovim kufrin, which Rashi says are these small dogs. It's one shot in Rashi. Or v'chatulim, cats, v'kaifin, monkeys, v'chuldois sanoim. And chuldois sanoim. How do they translate chuldois over there?
Bush weasels.
Bush weasels, okay. So these little weasels, that's allowed to be raised in Eretz Yisrael. Because what are they made for? They're made to clear out the house. When you have little mice in the house, they're the ones that eat up the mice in the house. So they're doing a good thing. So the Gemara now says, "My chol is anoim."
Mice, or they clean the house?
I think it refers to clearing out the house from the mice. Yeah. My chol is anoim. Now, what exactly are these weasels, these bush weasels? Amar Rav Yehuda, sharza, charza. These small shrotzim, these small creatures, which are called charza. Okay, veked amri charza. It's called charza. Diktini shake, which has very small legs. Veraye beni vardini, and it goes between little bushes. Omai sharza. What's this word sharza that we're saying? The mitatoi shake, that has very small legs. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. So Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav regarding this whole takana regarding Eretz Yisrael, that we want to make sure that there's no animals around to ruin people's properties. So he said, Asinu atzmeinu b'Bavel k'Eretz Yisrael l'behei medaka, that we made ourselves in Eretz Yisrael on the same standard like in Eretz Yisrael, that not to raise small livestock that should ruin properties. Same thing like in Eretz Yisrael. So Ravad Bar says to Rav Huna, Didochmai, so what's with you? You have animals, small animals that you're raising over here in Bava. Why? Amalei, so Rav Huna said, Didon kamitralahu chayva. My small livestock, my wife, which her name was Chayva, she's taking care of them to make sure they don't go out and ruin anyone's properties. Amalei, so Ravad Bar said a very strong thing. There was a takana then, that you shouldn't raise small livestock. So he said, Chayva, tikperina libna, she should bury her sons. Because you can't rely your wife. There's a takana sachamim, that they are on the standard, like Eretz Yisrael, that they don't raise small livestock. So the Gemara says, Kuli shana de Ravada Barava, as long as Ravada Barava was alive, lo yekayim zara le Rav Huna mi Chayva. Any of the sons that he gave birth from his wife Chayva did not live. See that? If you mevatel a takanas chachamim, even though it seems to be a small matter, but it's a takanas chachamim. So even a takanas chachamim, that's what happened. Yeah. Ikeda Amri, another version of the story is here. Amar Rav Huna, that Rav Huna said, Amar Rav, or the Bach takes out Amar Rav, that Rav Huna said, Asinu atzmeinu bebavel ke'eretz Yisrael lebehem edaka, that they were masaken, that in Bavel it should be like Eretz Yisrael regarding raising small livestock. When was this? Michi asa Rav lebavel. This is from when Rav came to Bavel, and Rav established a big yeshiva, and there was a lot of people that were living there. So then, Rashi brings here another pshat that there was Roiv Yidden there, and there's Yishuv Kavua. So then that's when they were careful about not raising small livestock to ruin people's properties. Rav, Shmuel, Ravasi. So all three, Rav, Shmuel, and Ravasi, Iklu, Lebei, Shavua, Haben. They all came together to a place where there was a Shavua Haben. What's Shavua Haben? Rashi says this is a bris. They all came. Why is it called Shavua Haben? Because the bris is after a week passes on the 8th day. So it's called Shavua Haben. Another version, they came to Yeshua Haben. They came to a meal of a Yeshua Haben. What's Yeshua Haben? Rashi says it's the meal that you make by a Pidyon Haben. And the reason it's called Yeshua is because Yeshua means redemption or salvation, when you redeem the child from the Kain. That's Pidyon Haben. It's Rashi's pshat. Taisus' pshat, however, is that Yeshua Haben is, it sounds like what Taisus is saying, is the union of a Shalom Zocher. After the child is born, Taisus says, so you make a meal to thank the Eibishter for the child that was born from the mother. That's called Yeshua Haben. I'm pretty sure this is the union of a Shalom Zocher. So they all three came together. So Rav lo'ayal kamei Shmuel. Rav did not want to enter ahead of Shmuel. Okay, we'll see soon the Gemara why not. Now Shmuel lo'ayal kamei Ravasi. Shmuel did not want to enter ahead of Ravasi. It was all three of them together, because Ravasi was greater than him. Ravasi was actually a student of Rav, but he was greater than Shmuel, so Shmuel didn't want to enter ahead of Ravasi. And Ravasi lo'ayal kamei Rav. But Ravasi would not go in ahead of Rav, because Rav was his teacher. So Rav's not going in before Shmuel. So none of them, they're stuck. Who's going to enter first? Okay, so what's going to happen over here? Again, Ravasi lo'ayal kamei Rav. Yeah, so Omri, so they said, man nirtach. Who's going to stay behind and stay back and let the other ones go in first, and then we'll figure this out of here. Says the Gemara, nitrach Shmuel, let Shmuel stay behind, and then V'neisi Rav Ravasi, and then let Rav go in first, and then Ravasi is student, and then Shmuel will come in. Which means if Shmuel is going in at the same time, then Rav didn't want to go in ahead of Shmuel. But if Shmuel is just going to back away, so now it's just Rav and Ravasi here. Shmuel's not here anymore. So then Rav will go in first, then we'll go to Ravasi, and then will come Shmuel. So the Gemara asks, why dafka this way? Maybe nitrach Rav or Ravasi. Why shouldn't Rav or Ravasi stay behind and then let Shmuel go in first, and then Rav would go in, and then Ravasi would go in? If Rav didn't want to go in ahead of Shmuel, so let first Shmuel go in. So the Gemara says, no. The emes is Rav was greater than Shmuel, and he's the one that had to go in first. Why didn't Rav want to go in ahead of Shmuel? Rav milse ba'almu da'avudei l'Shmuel. Rav, it was just a certain matter that caused that Rav wanted to show Shmuel honor. And what was this matter? Mishumahu Maise, there was a certain story, the Latye, Adbere, the Latye. There was the story where Rav cursed Shmuel. This was because when Rav was not well, Rashi brings the story, it says in the Gemara Shabbos, when Rav was not well, Shmuel tried to heal him, and Rav ended up, actually not only he didn't get healed, but he got even sicker from what Shmuel told him to do, and therefore Rav had then cursed him, so therefore Adbre Rav Alei. So Rav sort of took him upon himself. Rav, after that incident, always gave Shmuel extra honor. So therefore he didn't want that Shmuel should have to go in after him, because he always gave him special honor. But be'emes, the right thing was that Rav was supposed to go in first. That's what happened. They said that let Rav go in first, then Ravasi, and then later Shmuel will come. But the Gemara says even before they entered, as they're standing there, and that's why the Gemara is bringing in this whole story here for this halacha, also shunda, a cat came along, and bit off the hand of a child. So at that time, Nofak Rav Dora Sharav went out and darshan and said the halacha, chatul, a cat, mutala hargai. If someone's raising a cat, you're allowed to kill his cat. Vasa lekaima, you're not allowed to raise a cat at all. Ve'im by mishum gezel. If you steal it from this person, there's no gzela. Ve'im by mishum hashav aveda lebailam. And if you find a lost cat, you don't have to return it to its owner. Okay, so the Gemara explains why he says all these details to specify over here about this cat. The kivin da amrit mutar lahargai. Once you say you're allowed to kill someone's cat, so my niyasu asa lekaima. Why is it necessary to say that you shouldn't raise this cat? So the Gemara says, no, ma'adatayma. I would think to say mutar lahargai. If someone's raising a cat, he's allowed to raise the cat. But if it is a danger, you're allowed to kill it. But he's suraleka. There's no issa to have a cat as a pet. Kamash malam. So that's why it's saying that no, you're not allowed to raise a cat at all. Amri, further they said, Vikiv in the Amrit Ein by Mishum Gezel. Once you say that you're allowed that if you steal a cat from someone, there's no issue. Why is it saying that you don't have to return it to its owner? You're even allowed to steal it. For sure, you don't have to return it. Amar Ravina, so the Gemara says it's adding even la'oirei. Even if once this cat dies, and now it's a dead cat, you may think, okay, at least the hide, you should give back to the owner. No, even this, he raised the cat, you're not allowed to, you don't even have to give him back this hide. So here we see a new halacha. Rav says you're not allowed to raise this cat. Or Rav was really, as we see here from the Hemshech, Rav was saying this halacha, which was really a halacha from before, that you're not allowed to raise a cat. So now the Gemara asks from a Braise, Meisvei, the Braise we quoted before, Megadlin, Klovim, Kufrin. You're allowed to raise small dogs. V'chatulin, and cats. And v'kaifin, monkeys. V'chuldei sanaim, and these bush weasels. Why? They're raised in a home in order to clean out the place. So here we see you are allowed to raise a cat. And says the Gemara, it depends what kind of cat. Like kashya. Ha b'uchma. If it's a black cat, so a black cat is not so wild, so you're allowed to raise this cat. Ha b'chivra. But if it's a white cat, so that's a wild cat, that you're not allowed to raise. The story that we just quoted about Rav, where Rav says you shouldn't raise a cat, and the story there of this cat that bit off the hand of a child was a black cat. And says the Gemara, Hasam uchme bar chivra have. It was a black cat which was born from a white cat. So the fact that it was black, it doesn't mean anything. It was still a wild cat. In fact, the Gemara, but Ravina had a shaila about this. The boy Ravina said, Uchme bar chivra, a black cat which is born from a white cat, mahu. What's the halacha about this? Are you allowed to raise this cat or not? But according to what we just explained, Rav clearly said a black cat that comes from a white cat is wild, like a white cat, you're not allowed to raise. So the Gemara says, well, you have to look further. Ki Ravina's shaila was, B'uchme bar chivre bar uchme. When it's a black cat that comes from a white cat that came from a black cat. So over here, it's not clear if it's wild or not. The story that happened by Rav was B'uchme bar chivre have. It was a black cat that came from a white cat that came from a white cat. Over there, it's not a wild cat. Okay? Then Paiskim actually say regarding this whole takana of not raising a cat, that Bisman Hazeh doesn't apply b'chlal because the cats that we know of are not wild. This is talking about, I don't know, some other kinds of cats. The family of cats is tigers or something else, I don't know, which are wild cats, but it's not talking about the cats we know. Okay, for the halachas weiter, we have over here a siman, Chabad, Biach, Bechan, siman. Maybe this is the only time in Shas we have Chabad. Okay, so there's a siman for the halachas over here. Sagt die Gemara, Amar Abache bar Pape, Mishom Rababe bar Pape, Mishom Rabade bar Pape. There are these three brothers here. So Ravacha said it in the name of his brother Rababe, that said it in the name of his brother Ravade. Or another version, V'amri lo Amar Rababe bar Pape, Mishom Rabchie bar Pape, Mishom Rabache bar Pape. Or a third version, V'amri lo Amar Rababe bar Pape, Mishom Rabache bar Pape, Mishom Rabchanine bar Pape. That Masriin ala Chikoch b'Shabbos. That on Shabbos, if you see that there's this plague of chikoch, which is a kind of blisters, shchin, on Shabbos, so you're even allowed on Shabbos to fast and to, according to Rashi, even to blow shofar, like it describes in Gemara and Shabbos when there are different plagues and things that happen, that you fast and blow shofar. Even on Shabbos, you're allowed to blow shofar. Another thing he said, or they said, v'deles hanen eles, when you have a door that's locked on a person and in a certain matter that he's trying to do in business or in something else, and the door is locked on him, not very quickly is the door going to open up for him in this area. When Rashi says, the point of here is to say that when you fall into such a situation, you know that you have to daven very hard, that the Eibusha should help you. A third thing, when you're buying a house in Eretz Yisrael, this is for the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, to buy houses from a guy that owns a house in Eretz Yisrael. You're allowed to write a shtar, even on Shabbos, to be able to take this house away from a guy. The Gemara is soon going to explain it. It means through a guy writing the shtar, not a yid writing the shtar on Shabbos, as we'll see. Okay, but first the Gemara asks on this, Meisvei, we learned in the Braise, V'shar peronius ha-mistraksher subois al-tzibur. It says this is in Gemara and Tainus over there, when you have all different kinds of plagues and things, terrible things that come on the people, on the public. And there it says, Kagoyin chikuch, which is this kind of the blisters and shchin that people are plagued with, or chogov, grasshoppers that are attacking the fields, or zvov, some kind of flies that are attacking people, or tzira. Also, tzira is even more dangerous. Not tzira, what do they have there for tzira? Wasps, or I don't know what it is, that attack people, or v'yitush, other kinds of flies that annoy people, or v'shiluach nechoshem v'akravim, or there are snakes and scorpions. So here in this brayso it says, lo yoyu masriin, they would not fast and blow shofar even on Shabbos. They would daven. They would scream and daven to the Eibishter. So here we see that we were not masriyan on Shabbos for chikuch. So the Gemara answers like kasha. It's not a contradiction. It depends how terrible this plague of this shchin is. Kan belach. If it's still something which is moist, so then it's not so harmful as kan beyavesh. And over here, though, if it's dry, if it's a kind of a shchin that dries up the person's body, that's a much bigger plague, and that you're even allowed to daven and fast and blow shofar on Shabbos. The makkah of shchin that the Eibusher brought on the Mitzrim was lach mibachutz. It was moist on the outside, but v'yavish mibifnim. It was dry on the inside, and it dried up the whole body. Shenema, as the pasuk says, "Vayihi shchina babuis pereach ba'adam v'behema." Babuis means that it was like bubbling, meaning that it was moist on the outside. But that's babuis. When you looked at it, it looked like, but on the inside it was totally dry. What was the next thing that they said? V'deles hanin eles, a door that's closed. Lo b'meirati pasach. Not very quickly is this going to open up. What is this referring to? So as I mentioned before, it looks like it's referring to b'chlal, anything a person does. But here the Gemara says, Ma'hi. What is this referring to? Mazutra says, this is talking specifically about smicha. Trying to give smicha to someone, that he should be able to be a rav and have proper smicha. So if you try to give him the proper smicha and it doesn't work, so this means that the Eibusher is holding it back to something, some kind of a kitrug on this, and you have to daven that you should be able to give over the smicha. Ravashi says, anyone that he sees that he has trouble and problems in what he's trying to do, not very quickly will it be good for him. Now this is also, the Mefarshim say, this also refers to this, when a person takes upon himself a position of leadership over people, and right when he takes this leadership, people are fighting him and bothering him, he's not going to have an easy time later, that it should be good for him. Ravachim Medifti said, if you take up a position of leadership and people don't accept you, so you're never going to be accepted. People are not going to be good to you afterwards. But the Gemara says, and what Ravachim Medifti said, this is not true. Ravachim Medifti milsad nafshei hudahama. He was speaking from experience that he himself had. The Gemara in another place, and Bava Basra says that he was almost going to be appointed to be the leader, and then it didn't work out, and then later, but he had this kind of experience himself, but you can't make it as a rule for everyone else. Then the Gemara said, or the Brayso before, or actually it was the statement of the brothers over here from Rav Papa, the children of Rav Papa. So they said, "Valikeach bais beretz Yisrael." If you're buying a house in Eretz Yisrael, kaisnal of oinoi afilu b'Shabbos. So you write the shtar for this even on Shabbos. Fragt the Gemara, b'Shabbos lo ketaitoch a malacha of ksiva a yid could write for the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. How do you push off Shabbos to such a thing? Says the Gemara, Elikadol Marav Hasam, Rav said over there regarding another subject, that for the certain mitzvah, a guy can do a malacha for you, a shvus. A guy doing the malacha for you is just isim d'Rabbanan, he can do for you for the purpose of a mitzvah. Chanami here as well for Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, which is not stam a mitzvah, it's a mitzvah gedayla. So over here, you can tell a guy to write a shtar for you to be able to buy a house in Eretz Yisrael from a guy. Telling a guy to do a malacha for you is the Isam d'Rabbanani. Mishum Yishuv Eretz Yisrael legozer b'Rabbanan. But because of the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, Chachamim did not decree that in this case it should apply. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rav Yenison, halekeach ir b'Eretz Yisrael, a person that buys an entire city in Eretz Yisrael, kaif v'noisa likach lo derech ma'ar baruch esel. We force him that he should make the city that he bought for himself, shouldn't just be private, it should be available, there should be roads to enter into the city from all places, Mishum Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, because this is part of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, that has to be a city that's open and available for everybody to travel in here.